On today's show, Extension entomologist Eric Rebek talks about some trade-offs that we need to make to enjoy butterflies in our landscape. David Hillock has some great rose alternatives. Assistant Extension Specialist Shelley Mitchell shows a fun kids project of a grass caterpillar. Students from the OSU Camp Turf program demonstrate how to make a simple bonsai. And Barbara Brown cooks sweet potato hash. Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Underwriting assistance is provided by TLC, Oklahoma's leading garden center, Southwood Landscape and Nursery, Tulsa's source for great gardens, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing.
We are fortunate enough to have a wide variety of very attractive butterflies that visit Oklahoma. And many of these butterflies, of course, we enjoy the beauty of the adults, but we don't always appreciate the damage that's caused by the caterpillars, their larvae. One such beast that we watch for in our gardens that can cause us problems are the larvae of swallowtails. And they come in a wide variety of different colors and shapes and sizes. Sometimes they're oftentimes confused with the larvae of monarch butterflies. And the distinguishing feature you can tell is not only by the coloration and how they look, but also the type of food plant that they're associated with. The larvae of monarch caterpillars will feed exclusively on milkweed plants. The larvae of swallowtails will feed on a wider variety of plants, including some of our favorite herb plants. Things such as fennel and dill are quite commonly attacked by the larvae of swallowtails. And again, we're oftentimes more interested in attracting the adults, but we don't want those larvae. But unfortunately, we have to kind of tolerate some of the damage caused by the larvae if we want to have those adults around in the landscape. So one thing we can do is to allocate and separate out, and we have to be willing to sacrifice a small segment of our garden, including plants like fennel and dill, for the purpose of rearing those larvae. Again, that's going to be more attractive to the adults, having a place to lay their eggs. And then reserving our control measures for the section of the garden for the plants, the crops that we want to use on our dinner table. So butterfly gardening can be a very enjoyable endeavor to participate with our families and beautify our landscapes. But we have to keep in mind that the larvae of those butterflies do need to eat, and so we have to provide a portion of our desirable plants as larval food sources for those butterflies.
Roses are probably the most popular flowering landscape shrub that we have throughout the country to choose from. They're very popular, they have a long blooming period, large colorful flowers, and there are thousands of cultivars to choose from. Problem though is that some of them are very susceptible to diseases. The most popular disease that we deal with is the black spot of rose, and there's some other issues. But recently there's been a very devastating disease that's been spreading around called rose rosette. And because of that, some people are starting to look for alternatives to replace their roses with. And so we're going to take a look at several shrubs that provide wonderful flower color as well as other great attributes that you could use in your landscape besides roses. First one we're going to look at are the hydrangeas. Now the genus hydrangea is a large genus. There's many different species, and within each of those species there's multitude of cultivars. Their flower color ranges from pinks to blues and reds and whites. There's early spring blooming, and then there's some that bloom a little bit later, and there's even some that are supposed to be rebloomers, bloom sporadically throughout the summer. This one right here is in full bloom right now. This is one of the oak leaf hydrangeas, one of the best ones I think we have for Oklahoma. They also prefer a little bit of shade, so they do great in shady conditions. And as you can see, this has a huge panicle of flowers, mostly white, though there are some pink ones in here, and there's another cultivar over there that has a little bit more pink in them. The neat thing about these when they're done flowering is they continue to provide some interest. The portions of the flower that dry up, the seed pods and whatnot, will turn a little bit of a pinkish color. The foliage stays nice through the summer, and then it can have a spectacular reddish fall color as well. Bark is kind of interesting, so after the leaves fall in the autumn, throughout the winter months, you still have something to look at. So an excellent shrub for our landscape. Another shrub that I really like and I think is underutilized is the genus Hypericum, which is the St. John's worts. This is an awesome shrub. It can actually be semi-evergreen to evergreen depending on the species and the cultivar, but look at the beautiful bright buttercup yellow flowers that are just covered, that are covering these plants. It's a beautiful plant. As you can see, it's also the bees and the hummingbirds and the butterflies love this plant. The bees are going crazy right now. It'll bloom early summer and through through the early part of the summer, and then sometimes we'll get some blooms a little bit later on. The foliage is a blue-green to sometimes a dark green. They can get anywhere from 2 to 3 feet high and just about as wide to 5 or 6 feet high, just depending on the cultivar. Another nice attribute is that it can have a nice fall color, and on some species, if you look at the fruits that follow the flowers, they can be a reddish to reddish brown color as well, so they can look pretty spectacular a little bit later on in the summer and the fall. These plants like relatively moist soils, but they are relatively drought tolerant as well, and they're just great plants for full sun. Another overlooked shrub that's actually a native is Cephalanthus, or buttonbush. This is a plant that's found growing throughout Oklahoma along waterways, along the edges of streams and lakes and ponds, etc. So it likes wet feet, and so if you have a wet spot in your garden, this might be something to consider. But it can grow. The species can get about 8 to 10 feet tall. I've seen it even a little bit taller than that. This particular one here, you can see it's been kind of trained into a single stem, but otherwise it would be a multi-stem shrub with arching branches. And then, of course, during the summertime, you can see it's in full bloom right now, and these blooms are really unique and really cool. We call it buttonbush. I call it, it looks to me like it looks more like a pin cushion with lots of little pins stuck in the flower. But this is really cool. There's a cultivar called Sugar Shack. It's only supposed to be about 3 to 4 feet tall and just about as wide. Otherwise, they get a little bit taller. Abelia is a favorite of the South. It is a beautiful shrub, has bright glossy green leaves, and as you can see, it has white to pink flowers. Blooms in the spring to early summer, and actually can bloom sporadically throughout the rest of the summer, rest of the growing season until fall. It is another plant that's semi-evergreen to evergreen, depending on our winters and the species, in the cultivar or the species. But this is a great plant. It's fragrant. It attracts butterflies, hummingbirds, and bees. The older cultivars or varieties can get quite large. As you can see here, they can get 6, 7, 8 feet tall probably, and just about as wide. The newer cultivars that are on the market are more compact, smaller, getting maybe 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, and many of them have some wonderful variegated foliage as well. The Rose of Sharon, boy, you can't beat that one too, and you don't want to forget this one. It's as you can see in this particular cultivar, the flowers are large. This is a nice double flowering form. It has even a little bit of a red center in the inside of the throat. And that's common on many of the plants. They have an overall color of the petals, and then often a center that's a different color, usually red or white, depending on the cultivar. But this plant has improved over the years. The older varieties, they reseed themselves like crazy, and in some places have been considered invasive weeds. But a lot of the newer cultivars are hybrids and produce a lot less seed, and so they're not as much of a problem. They're also designed to be a little bit more compact and a lot more flowers on the plants. But they can get quite large. They can get, we've got some on campus that are probably 10, 15 feet tall, been trained into small trees. So they can be a nice shrub or medium to large shrub to even a small tree. But they're excellent plants and put on a great show in early to, mid-summer. So I hope this gives you some great ideas if you're looking for some new shrubs for the landscape. Roses are still great, don't rule them out, but there's plenty of other plants out there that provide wonderful summer flowers as well as other characteristics.
Today we're going to do a fun activity that kids really enjoy called a grassy caterpillar. So what it involves is, it's really simple, just a knee high, 2 googly eyes, a bobby pin, and some soil and grass seed. So what we're going to do, and the important thing is, remember, in every segment put some grass seed. I usually put it first, because if you get to the end of this activity and you forgot to put grass seed in each segment, you can't go back and undo it very easily. So I put, depending on how big a handful you have, you put a little bit of grass seed, a little bit of potting soil, kind of mix it up so all the grass doesn't grow out and make it look like a tail or something. Then you could just tie a knot, or if you want to and you have little rubber bands, you could put a rubber band between each section. But there's one section, and you just repeat as many sections as you want to do for your little caterpillar. I try to get the same amount of soil in each segment. Just regular potting soil works fine. Mix it up a little bit. Okay, once you got the grass seed and the soil put in several segments, the fun part, what the kids like the most, comes up next. If you notice, on the end of the knee high, there's a seam that makes a really cool little mouth. So we're going to put a face on our caterpillar. So you can either use hot glue or some kind of tacky glue to attach the googly eyes. They have to be googly eyes, that's what kids like. And then for antenna, you take a bobby pin and you spring it, and then you push it through the knee high, and you have antenna. Then after the glue dries, what you need to do is soak it really good, and I usually put it on a plate or something so I can really get it wet, and I keep it wet while the grass germinates, and eventually it'll start sprouting, and then it'll fill in. It'll even get more full than this, but you'll have a little grassy caterpillar, and the really fun part comes when you get to mow it.
Each summer, Oklahoma State University hosts Camp Turf, a 2-week residential camp where high school students participate in hands-on activities and interact with professors to explore a variety of careers in horticulture and landscaping. As part of their activities, they join Oklahoma Gardening to share one of the skills they learned. This year, students are going to show us how to make a simple bonsai.
Good morning. My name is Sean and I made this bonsai.
My name is Shemeko Cashman Perrier Flanagan.
It's Asia Contreras.
My name is Lydia.
Noah McGill.
It's Albany Blackburn.
Maggie Jensen.
My name is Malik Dixon.
Odessa Dila.
It's Rada. I'm Jonathan Ashby.
It's Jovi.
Juliana Richardson.
My name is Jerome.
Hayden Vile.
My name's Mackenzie Lynn.
I'm Maurice Daly.
I'm Zoe.
My name's Celestia Carmona.
It's Priya.
Crochet McKinney.
My name is Gabby.
I'm Thomas Dunn. The first step to making a bonsai is you got to pick the right kind of tree. It's got to have it's a fixed stem. It's got to have a good root system. You have to see and you gotta get a feel for it.
So like first you like go to like a nursery or something and you like pick out this like plant that's like tree-ish.
When you choose a pot, it needs to be like pretty small and have a drain hole and have soil that's made up of like sand so it drains really well and doesn't drown.
First thing I did was take it out of the big pot, and I took some of the dirt out of it so it can fit inside this.
I needed soil and I needed a bonsai tree, and so I had to put it in this bowl and pat it all down.
And then we took it out of the original thing and just took all the dirt off of the roots, and then cut all the roots that were unnecessary because our pot's not that big anymore.
Take your plant and expose the roots by removing some of the dirt and also the roots on the bottom. This root right here I exposed, and this one right here I exposed, and I just kind of dug around to just get the roots out. And the ones that are kind of like just standing out here, you can just discard those because they're gonna die soon anyways.
And then I trimmed it down and cut some of the smaller branches off.
The goal is to make it look older, so you can push the dirt down to expose the roots, and you really want to trim it out because an older tree won't have as lush of greenery.
And what I did, I stick the metal inside the pot and shape my plant into this.
You gotta like make the wire like aim it in different ways, and like you make it up or down or anyway.
And then we like put wires on it to hold it in proper position.
And then you just kind of form it to however you want. Take like wire and wrap it around it to make it stand and train it.
And I'm gonna leave that one on for the wire on for about 3 months so that the tree will start growing like that now. It'll stay like that without the support.
I think it's actually pretty cool because it's like, I don't know really how to explain it, but it's really cool because they look old and yet they're tiny. And you know how trees are supposed to be big.
Water it, and in the winter you have to keep it cool because it likes to be cold or in the cold environment.
Water it like daily, like once or twice or something like that. And like for like the type of plants these are like in like, you know, like Oklahoma region and like normal regions where we like get cold and then warm and cold and then warm. And so you have to like during like the cold times put it out so it can be warm in the warm times.
It leans me more towards architecture, but I didn't know about landscape architecture until yesterday, so I thought that was pretty cool. So now I'm looking into that too.
Leadership skills, learned a couple different things upon that, like I could probably use on a resume if I planned on going here in the future.
Camp Turf, it's great. It's great.
I really like it. I think I'm gonna come back next year.
I think it's top notch.
It's pretty fun. Like you learn try a lot of different things like architecture and everything. It's fun. I just don't like waking up early.
I learn a lot of knowledge about horticulture and a lot of stuff.
Yes, a very good time. That's probably the best camp I've ever been to. Because you get to learn about horticulture, and I just want to learn things that I've never learned before.
If someone's thinking about Camp Turf, I would definitely recommend it. Like thus far, I've had so much fun. I've met so many great people. Life in the dorm is great. The things we've been doing are great. It's all just been a great experience.
to be the sweet potato was a Thanksgiving-only food, but nowadays it's pretty much year-round because it's so high in nutrition and because it tastes so good. So I'm going to make a sweet potato and beef hash for us today. You could use other types of meat. The idea is to use leftover foods on this as far as the meat's concerned. Now generally I would use a non-stick skillet for this, but with this particular piece of cooking equipment I don't have a non-stick skillet that works it. So I'm going to put a little bit of oil in the pan in order to help hopefully prevent it from sticking too much. Then I've got one large sweet potato cut into 1/2-inch cubes, peeled and cut into 1/2-inch cubes, and I'm going to add that to our pan. Try and get the cubes to be as close to the same size as you can. I know that will be impossible because they come in different shapes, but they're going to cook much more evenly the more even size they are when they start going into the pan. So do your best on that one. Also going to add for flavoring a tablespoon of taco seasoning mix and a 1/4 cup of water. And we're just going to put the lid on the pan after we get this stirred together and let those cook until the potato is probably tender crisp. And then we're going to go ahead and add some more ingredients. So the potato could be cut up ahead of time. You can actually buy squash, which you could use in place, or potatoes sometimes in the market. So they'd be ready to go. So this, it looks like maybe it's going to take a lot of time, but it really doesn't. So this is 8 to 10 minutes, depending on the size of the potato cubes. You can see most of the water has evaporated. There's still a little bit left. I'd actually put in a little bit more than the recipe called for, which is 1/4 cup, because we're out here and it's quite a breeze. I'm now going to stir in about a tablespoon of oil, and this is again to help it keep from sticking, but also to add some flavor. So I'm going to scrape up some of the flavors that have gotten down there on the bottom. And also to this, which I should have added with the sweet potatoes, but I missed them, I'm going to add about a cup of finely chopped onion. And we're going to stir that in. And we're going to let this continue to cook until the potatoes are done the rest of the way, which will be somewhere between 4 to 6 minutes probably. We'll get that kind of spread out a little bit. And while we're waiting on that, let's go ahead and make the topping. What we have here are 2 tablespoons of sour cream, and we're just going to stir these together and just set them aside until we're ready to actually serve the dish. And then 1 teaspoon of hot sauce, and I'll let you make the choice of how hot and which brand, and whether you want it all or whether you want 2 teaspoons. So that part's up to you. That gives you some flexibility. And just stir that together, and with this particular one, it turns into a really pretty just sort of salmon color. So that's going to look nice on the top as well. And then finally we have the beef. Now this you have a lot of options with. You could use chicken, you could use pork, you could use leftover roast, you could cook some meat specifically for this. You could also go to the deli and buy roast beef and just cut it into 1/2-inch cubes. Any of those are great options. What you want to look at is what's the nutritional value for your needs of the choices that you make. All of them in that case are probably going to be fairly lean, but if you go to the deli products tend to be much, much higher in sodium, almost sometimes 10 times higher. So you want to look at that. If that's something you're trying to reduce, then you might want to look at another option. But again, I've cut it into cubes. If it's a leftover, you might want to just shred it. That would work too. This is a hash, and the nice thing about hash is that they have a lot of flexibility like a salad does. They're probably also one of those things that you want to eat or make at home or with someone that you know has done it, that has made it, because if you get in some other situations, they may be using ingredients that you really wouldn't want in your hash, and that's happened to me because I'm such a fan that I was massively disappointed at one point. But this one is really, really good, and I hope you'll give it a try. We'll let these carrots and potatoes continue to cook for just a little bit longer. They're done when they're tender and when the potatoes are easily pierced. We'll let these onions and potatoes continue to cook a little bit. The goal here is to make sure they're completely tender when you pierce them with a fork. They're going to continue to cook just a little bit after we add the meat, but not a lot. We also want to get the carrots a little bit softer in this case, so usually 4 to 6 minutes. You can see the potatoes are just fine. They're nice and tender. So I'm going to go ahead and add the meat to it. As I said, this is roast beef in this case, but you have many options. And we're going to add that in here and stir it around a little bit. Now this has got to continue to cook just until the beef is hot. And because we've used up most of the water that was in here, it's been absorbed or evaporated, one of the two or probably both. I'm going to add a little bit more water to it. This is also going to let me get some of those good tasting bits off the bottom of the pan. So just 1 or 2 more tablespoons, and we're just going to let this cook just until the beef is hot. This is ready now. As you can see, it didn't take a lot of time to prep, a little bit of chopping time. A lot of that can be done ahead of time. This serves 4 people. It's really beautiful. It tastes absolutely fantastic. And it's really nutritious. The vitamin A content is almost off the roof. We're now going to top this with a little bit of our sauce here. Remember, there's 4 servings here, so we have to share a little bit of it. And some fresh cilantro or Italian parsley. I hope you'll try this. It really is good. It's fairly quick. It's highly nutritious, and it's so flavorful. You're just not going to believe it. This is sweet potato hash. For Oklahoma Gardening, I'm Barbara Brown.
Next week, Extension entomologist Andrina Schufran identifies the spiders in our homes and gardens. Shelley Mitchell is back with another fun kids' garden project. We look at some skinny apple trees, find a troublesome weed, and former host Brenda Sanders hammers away at some plant labels. So join us then for more TV You'll Grow to Love. To find out more information about show topics, as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure and visit our website, oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. And we always have great information, answers to questions, photos, and gardening discussions on your favorite social media as well. Join in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find this entire show and other recent shows, as well as individual segments on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And tune in to our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel to watch segments from previous hosts. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater jewel. We wish to thank our generous underwriters, TLC Garden Centers, Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is provided by Pond Pro Shops, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, and the Oklahoma Horticultural Society.